Namaste, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. Let's talk about anxiety. That is the main topic of our conversation today. Anxiety in midlife is so very real. And for many women, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. Either you never experienced anxiety before and all of a sudden you do in midlife, or maybe anxiety has been a companion for a long time, but you had certain tools and tricks and kept it under control. And now those things are no longer working. We're going to talk about why that is, what yoga philosophy has to say about it, and how we can begin working with our anxiety, understanding what it's trying to tell you. Because we often view anxiety as a problem to fix, but I don't see it that way, and neither does yoga philosophy. Yoga says that anxiety is a signpost from our deepest, truest self that is trying to guide us towards a more authentic version of ourselves. And so when we are experiencing anxiety, it really is just our body and our mind trying to alert us that we are a little off track. We are off course in our own lives, and we need to return to center, which really is all of what yoga philosophy and practice is about, is returning to center. So we're going to talk about that reframe. We're going to talk about how we can return to center. And we're going to talk about the importance of doing this at this particular stage of our life, because I think that nature doesn't make mistakes. We are beings of nature. We are not separate from nature, and nature has designed us and our bodies to do exactly what they're doing at this stage of life. And there's a reason for that. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's true. There is a reason that we have these declining hormones that make our nervous system more sensitive, that cause anxiety. It's all part of the plan, and we're going to talk about what that means. But the first thing I want to mention to you is how anxiety lives in both the mind and in the body. And so often we try to deal with it from a top down approach, say therapy. We try to deal with our anxiety by going to therapy, which of course can be very helpful, or a bottom up approach. We try to deal with our anxiety by exercising, breath work, yoga. Both of these things are powerful on their own. But if we want real, true, lasting transformation, not just managing our anxiety, but transforming it, then we need to do both. We need to work with the whole system and work top down and bottom up. And that is what I do with my clients in my coaching container. We work on uncovering the thoughts and the patterns of thought that are creating the anxiety. And we work with the body. We work on moving it through us. We work on understanding what the body is trying to tell us. And we work the whole system together. So if this is resonating with you, if you have had anxiety, you're struggling with it, and you have tried one approach or the other, but not both together at the same time in a concentrated container, then think about working with me. You can book a clarity call on my website or in the notes, the show notes. There's a link there. We can talk about what this looks like and how we can get you out of this anxiety spiral and move into alignment and peace and spaciousness in your mind and your body. So let's begin just by talking about what anxiety feels like. Because it's not always obvious, especially if you're someone who hasn't experienced anxiety prior to this midlife phase and you're unfamiliar with what it feels like to be anxious. It can be subtle, but like this low level, constant hum in the background. It's not always panic, right? We're not always going straight to I'm having panic attacks or I'm so anxious that I'm dysfunctional in my life. You may still be extremely functional in your life, going to work, taking care of kids or aging parents, doing all the things that you need to do. But there's this background hum of constantly overthinking, feeling really restless all the time, not being able to sit still, having trouble relaxing, even when you're doing really relaxing activities, feeling tension in your body. Maybe your neck and shoulders are really tight, or you are getting a lot of headaches from the tension that you're carrying in your head or in your neck and shoulders. Maybe you constantly are starting to have like belly problems, like all of a sudden your stomach is hurting a lot. We can even feel like jitteriness throughout the body or just in the limbs, heart racing or heart palpitations, feeling like you're constantly on edge and the world is just overstimulating, right? Everything is making you feel overstimulated all the time. The mind is never quiet, right? It's just constantly going, going, going. There may be a lot of ruminating or thought looping happening. It can also show up as indecision, having trouble just making decisions because the mind is not clear. And so that leads to an inability to make clear thoughts and decisions and know what you want and what feels right. It can feel like a disconnection from yourself where almost your mind feels separate from your body, like almost as if you're a head on top of a body, but the two things are not connected. And a loss of excitement, right? What used to be really exciting and fun isn't anymore. And that can happen anyway, because as we move into this midlife phase, sometimes the things that we once loved, we don't anymore. But this, what I'm talking about is nothing feels exciting. Nothing feels fun. Everything feels hard and like it's a chore and that it requires a tremendous amount of energy. That can be a side effect of anxiety because anxiety is exhausting, right? Carrying the feelings in your body, right? Walking around feeling constantly tense or, with an upset stomach or any of the things that we talked about, and having a very active mind requires a lot of physical energy. And so we're using a lot of physical energy just to exist, and as a result we wind up not really having much energy for other things like play and having fun. So maybe you recognize yourself in that, or maybe you have some other things that you're experiencing. I would love to hear. So please reach out to me after you listen to this episode if you have some other symptoms that are really prominent for you, because I really just want to get to understand what midlife women are experiencing during this phase. Those are very common ones that I mentioned, but I would love to hear any others that I did not touch on. So, so that's the experience of it. So, what does yoga say is happening here? From a yogic philosophy perspective, this makes a lot of sense because yoga teaches that suffering begins with something called avidya, which we talked about in last week's episode. I'd highly recommend you go back and listen to that. But avidya is misidentification. It's when we start believing that we are our roles, our accomplishments, our patterns, our responsibilities, instead of believing that those are things that we do and we experience, but they're not who we are. As for a long time, the identities that we carried with us, whether that is mom or whatever your professional title is, or partner or daughter, or maybe you were the responsible one or the organized one or the financially savvy one, or whatever it is that you identified as, we started to believe that those that's what we are. And you become the person who does what's needed to fulfill that role, right? So if you are the responsible one, well, maybe you're making sure that everything gets taken care of at home, you're over functioning at work, you are trying to solve problems for friends or for extended family members or even for your own children, right? You're hopping in and trying to solve your children's problems, right? Because this is how you have identified this is what you do because this is who I am. But eventually, those identities stop fitting. And when they stop fitting, something inside of us knows it. And quite often, our body knows it before our conscious mind, our conscious thoughts catch up. And that's where the discomfort begins. That's where we start feeling anxious because our body knows that these roles and identities and patterns are no longer serving us. And our subconscious mind also knows it, but our conscious mind is still identifying with those things. And there's this belief that if we're not those things, then who are we? And if we can't see past those things, then we feel stuck inside of them. And that is what we talked about last week. So that's why I'm encouraging you to go back and listen to last week's episode because it talks all about how to get unstuck. So that stuckness is actually creating a lot of the anxiety that we are experiencing because we know we're out of alignment, but we don't know how to get back into alignment. And we don't know how to get out of this avidya, this identifying, this misidentification with who we are. And so we repeat the same patterns over and over. In yoga, those are called samskaras, but they're patterns and conditionings that we carry, and they are beliefs and habits that we've built over a lifetime. They're the ways we have learned how to succeed, how to stay safe, how to cope. Uh, but when you feel stuck or anxious, it is often because those patterns are still running, but they're no longer working, right? The patterns are not working anymore. And the anxiety is there to show you that the patterns are not working and that you need to evolve the patterns. So why does midlife make this louder, right? Why does this all of a sudden start rising to the surface where maybe it was bubbling below for, in your 30s, but come 30s or even early 40s, but come, mid 40s, early 50s, this starts, what was a whisper is becoming a shout through a megaphone. Right? It's such an important turning point, this midlife era. It has a way of stripping things down, and what used to work doesn't work anymore. What used to feel fulfilling feels totally flat. What used to feel totally clear and certain feels uncertain. And that is, let me just normalize that, right? That is a normal part of this stage of life. It is not only normal, it is necessary, it is required if we want to evolve here, right? If we want to become the most self-actualized versions of ourselves, then this needs to happen. And at the same time, that we're experiencing all of these external changes in our, what feels fulfilling, our work roles, our home roles, all of those types of things. We're also experiencing these bodily changes, right? Our hormones are shifting. We cannot tolerate stress the way that we did once before. We can't push through, before where we used to be tired, but we could just keep pushing through. We just can't do it anymore. And as I mentioned earlier, like this is intelligent design. It doesn't feel that way because we want to be able to do all of the things that we used to be able to do. And we don't know who we are if the roles and identities that we've always held no longer apply. And we want to, make this sense of anxiety go away and feel better. But I I promise you, this is intelligent design. This is nature's way of forcing you to evolve, essentially. And instead of saying, what's wrong with me? I can't handle anything. I have to fix this. What if we reframe that? And what if we started asking the question, what is my body guiding me towards? What way of living is no longer serving me? How is my body mind asking me to evolve into a self led, rooted, grounded midlife woman? So, I think we can't talk about this topic without talking about our nervous system. Your nervous system has adapted to live the life that you've been living. A life of doing, a life of achieving, a life of holding things together, and quite frankly, often putting yourself last, right? Many women, they are last on their own lists. And then midlife comes, and your system says, I can't keep doing this the same way. And if you're still trying to be the old version of yourself, that's when anxiety increases. Again, not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. And if we don't listen, then it's going to shout louder and louder at us. It's not going to just go away or say, "Oh, okay, you don't want to do that. I'm just going to pack my bags and turn around." It's not going to do that. It is going to keep coming at you until you listen. So instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this anxiety?" we begin asking, what is this anxiety trying to show me? And because anxiety in midlife is often what it feels like in the body when your life is asking you to change, but you haven't fully moved yet. Anxiety is the symptom of the of the subconscious thoughts that you have not brought to the surface yet, right? That's what it is. And what keeps us stuck is the refusal to change. It's the refusal to look and get quiet and try to understand where we need to go, how we need to turn, what next step we need to take. We are fearful. We are fearful to do that. And we talked about that in last week's episode. We talked about attachment and aversion and how those two things really keep us stuck in this fear of change. And then we don't change, and then the anxiety keeps persisting, keeps trying to get our attention. So what yoga offers is a different way. It's not forcing, it's not pushing through, it's just awareness. It's an awareness that, okay, I'm being asked to shift in some way. And instead of looking at that as a problem, maybe I look at it as an invitation to pause and investigate, get curious, and an invitation to return to my body, to not run away when I experience those physical sensations, but to actually sit with them, breathe into them, and get curious there as well. And an invitation to notice where in your life you feel expansive and where you feel contracted. And that is a big signal because wherever you feel expansive is where your body mind is asking you to go. And where you feel contracted is where it is telling you that is not for you anymore. And we have to trust that. We have to trust what our body is trying to tell us. We are, as humans, what's the word I want to use? We are very skilled at convincing ourselves of what we want to be true, right? We don't maybe want to leave behind certain identities. It might be really hard to change certain patterns. We might have grief over losing certain roles. And so we try to convince ourselves that they all still work. But the mind will lie, right? The conscious mind will lie because it's often driven by the ego. But our unconscious mind and our body will always tell us the truth. So we always have to move towards expansion and away from contraction. So just take a moment, maybe close your eyes and take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And ask yourself, where in my life do I feel this anxiety most strongly? Just let whatever answer arises come to the surface. Now ask yourself, what might I be holding on to that no longer fits? Where do I feel that contraction in my body and mind? Now maybe ask yourself, what truth have I been resisting? And if something comes up for you, a truth that you can imagine living into, what would that feel like in your body? Allowing any answers that want to surface. And if nothing comes, it's okay. It's okay to just ask the questions and let them marinate. Right? Let them marinate in your mind and in your body. The answers may not come right away, but asking the question is the first step. So, as we wind down this episode, I just want to reinforce that you are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. This is our nature's way, our body's way. God, the divine consciousness who created all of this, it is the plan so that we can become rooted, self-led, wise, so that we can step into our alignment and serve the world, serve younger generations. That's how we get there. We get there by embracing these changes, not by fighting them, but by seeing them for what they are, an invitation to become a different kind of woman, a woman who is less focused on pleasing others and accumulating and achieving, and more focused on becoming and on serving and on experiencing joy, gratitude, love. And if this sounds like work that you are ready to do, then use that link in my show notes or go to my website at katiefrenas.com, book a clarity call. We will work top down and bottom up, and you will begin to understand the patterns that have been running your life, regulate your nervous system, and move towards feeling grounded, clear, and aligned. Real change is not about pushing harder. It's about working with your whole system and doing it in a way that is compassionate and loving and patient. Right? We have to be patient with ourselves. And for now, I hope this episode was helpful. I hope it helped you to understand better why anxiety is more prevalent during midlife and reframe how you're looking at your anxiety. And maybe you got a few answers to those questions above that can help you to take just one small step in the direction of alignment for you. All right. As always, I love you very much, and I'm wishing you a beautiful week ahead. Namaste.